So I definitely felt a little conflicted coming into Superman and Lois Season 3. I didn't love Season 2, but the Arrowverse thing, that's a whole one reason. It left a sour taste in my mouth where they pulled it out of the Arrowverse, but that was not the only reason or many of the reasons why I disliked the season. In general, for Season 2, I just felt like the characters weren't nearly as good, the individual episodes weren't nearly as good, the villain wasn't nearly as good. To be honest, I just felt like Season 2 of Superman and Lois was a downgrade in most ways, and then the Arrowverse thing happened at the end of the season, and it left me feeling really kind of disappointed and down with the show in general. Now, during the hiatus between Season 2 and Season 3, we had almost an entire year to kind of sit on the show, and it helped. I think having that huge break between the seasons really helped me to get into the mindset of, we're coming back to Superman and Lois, we still have a live-action Superman show, let's get into this, let's see what they're doing. But there was still this little feeling in the back of my mind that maybe I wouldn't like Season 3, and maybe that the show in general just was never going to reach the highs that, in my opinion, Season 1 included. Like, Season 1 is one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen in my entire life. I feel like Season 2 was just kind of a pretty middle-of-the-road DC season that sometimes had little signs of greatness in it. Now, for Season 3, the premiere, personally, it made me feel a little similar to how Season 2 felt. Didn't hate the Season 3 premiere, didn't love it, just felt like it was kind of a lot of the same stuff that Season 2 was, and I was hoping for better. The rest of the season, however, really did make waves to make me be on board with the show again. The Lois Lane storyline this season was absolutely amazing, and it was handled so well emotionally. Superman and Lois basically became this designated 40 minutes every week where I would cry because the Lois Lane storyline was that emotional, that well done. And Season 1 was a season where I teared up quite a bit. When I would tear up in Season 1, it was because of how just happy I was with the show. Like, just seeing a cool Superman scene, seeing the opening 7 minutes of the pilot episode were just these little things that were making me really happy, to the point where I would tear up a little bit because, man, we were seeing a live action Superman show in all of its glory, and it looked amazing. Season 3 also made me tear up, but it was for completely different reasons. It was because of how well they were handling the storyline for Lois this season, and it's honestly, in my opinion, this season was the most adult DCTV season we've ever had. Maybe the most adult comic book season we've ever had. I feel like, well, yeah, there was always this background stuff of some superhero stuff going on. The forefront of this season was human emotions and was dealing with something that affects millions of people every day on the planet. It was real, it was relatable, and I feel like I've seen a lot of people talk about Superman and Lois Season 3 in regards to how the season has made them reflect or affected them in relation to a family member or themselves that were going through the same situations that Lois was going through, and how crazily much it felt relatable to them. Now, Lois Lane stuff was fantastic, but it wasn't the only good thing about this season. I feel like Bruno Manheim was a really good villain. I feel like they handled him really well. The onomatopoeia stuff and Pia herself was all really good. The John Henry Irons stuff in the early part of the season, where they kind of tied it back to his family and his other world and all of that sort of stuff, I also really enjoy. The new actor for Jonathan Kent, Michael Bishop, did a really good job. Now, at first, admittedly, I was a little bit not too on board with what they were doing with him, but honestly, by around episode 3 or 4, I really did like it. And around episode 4 or episode 3 of the season on to about episode 9, it was the best stretch of episodes in the entire show, in my opinion. I think that there were some real 5 out of 5 episodes in there, and that was really to bring together because they were doing everything on a great level. The Clark scene where he's confronting Candace's dad was amazing, and one of the best Clark Kent scenes we've seen in anything. That felt like a very Christopher Reeve style Superman scene to me, and that's something that people always give credit to this show for, is that Tyler Hoechlin's Clark Kent feels most like Christopher Reeve and how he interpreted Clark Kent, and I love that because I think Christopher Reeve, I think he was a master at Clark Kent, and I feel like Tyler is right there behind him. Now, some stuff I didn't love. I think that Jordan was unfortunately kind of a downer this season. I'd found it quite hard to empathize with a lot of what he was doing, or to really like the character for a lot of the season. He's becoming a kind of a proper Superboy now, or whatever they want to call him. I felt like that they didn't handle it well. Sarah and Lana, I also feel like could have been better, could have been worse. They were just kind of there for a lot of the season for me. The Kyle and Chrissy storyline, I also could not get behind. Some of it was kind of funny and cute, but for a lot of it, I felt like I don't know why we're spending so much time on this. I don't know why we are dealing with this so much. And it's a lot of that sort of stuff throughout the season that still makes this season, while it's really good, It feels like sort of a return to form. I don't feel like season 3 matches season 1 just yet, because despite how fantastic the Lois Lane storyline is, there's a lot of the side characters that I feel like that they were much better in season 1 than they are in season 3. Now, I don't feel like the side characters in this season are as bad as they were in season 2, but I do just feel like in general the supporting cast this season does not match the supporting cast in season 1, even though there are a lot of the same characters. I just feel like the way they're written this season does not feel as good. Now, Michael Cudlitz as Lex Luthor was a pretty crazy casting that I was not in any way on board with when they first announced. And I like the actor. I like him in The Walking Dead. I like him in Band of Brothers. Everything I've seen him in is great. I just could not see him as Lex Luthor in my mind. And I was like, this is a very unusual way to go. So like when I see that actor, it more reminds me of kind of a mob boss than it does of the Lex Luthor that gets a lot of other people to do his dirty work. But I'm happy to say that in the 2 episodes that he was in, they proved me wrong. I thought he was a fantastic Lex Luthor. Now, I don't know if I would say just yet that he's better than like John Cryer or something like that, but I do think that they did a really good job of making him stand out and be a unique Lex Luthor. And the 2 episodes we saw of him, the scenes he was given with Lois, with Clark, all of those other things were really, really, really great. Now, this season was quite slow. The Bizarro stuff was building up all season. The Lex Luthor stuff was being teased all season. In some ways, outside of the Lois Lane storyline, it did feel like this season was kind of just setting up and getting us ready for season 4, which is weird because half of the cast now aren't going to be in season 4 because of budget cuts. And I think that making this season be mostly setting up and getting us ready for the 4th season was a really, really, really dangerous plan, and I'm not entirely sure that I respect that they decided to do that. Now, what I mean by this is that there was the whole situation where every DC show under the sun was getting cancelled, and Superman and Lois somehow survived the absolute massacre of DC shows. Batwoman ended on a tiny bit of a cliffhanger, but for the most part wrapped everything up. Legends of Tomorrow, they knew that they could get cancelled, and they decided to go full cliffhanger heavy and just end the show like it was still in the middle of a story. And there's a difference between, I think, Batwoman, Titans and Legends of Tomorrow. And by that I mean that Batwoman and Titans, they both tried to end their seasons the best they could, with maybe a little hint in case they do potentially get renewed. But for the most part, they didn't expect to get renewed, and they made their shows end in places where everyone is kind of satisfied with the way the show ended. Legends of Tomorrow, however, if you go on Twitter and you go on any DC page or anything related to DC, you'll see a ton of people giving out about Legends of Tomorrow, saying that the storyline was not finished. And for that reason, Legends of Tomorrow is going to be a very difficult show to rewatch for a lot of people because it ends in the middle of nowhere. Like, it doesn't end in any sort of resolution for the storyline or for the characters. Whereas Batwoman and Titans and Stargirl, I think Stargirl is the best example of it, of being a 3-season show that it is infinitely rewatchable because of how it ended, even though it got cancelled. Superman and Lois really did dangerously toe that line, in that this show, the fact that it got renewed for season 4 is amazing. I'm so happy, but this show easily could have turned into a, well, shit, can't really rewatch that. Like, imagine if the final frame of the show was that Superman going up against Doomsday scene. It's fantastic, it looks super cool, but it's in no way a resolution or a wrap up for the show, and they were very close to getting cancelled. Like, this wasn't a decision that had been made for months and they knew about it months in advance. This was something that they didn't know whether it was going to happen until right up until that happened. So they easily could have gone cancelled. And Gotham Knights did get cancelled. They were right there with Gotham Knights, which Gotham Knights ended on a cliffhanger, and I think that was stupid. Gotham Knights should have known that there was no way they were getting another season. But Superman and Lois easily could have been in that camp as well, whereas this is a season or a show that could have been really hard to rewatch because they just ended it in such a big place. Now, getting away from that, bringing in Doomsday as potentially the big thing for season 4 is really cool. I'm kind of intrigued with their decision to begin season 4 with the death of Superman rather than end season 3 with the death of Superman, because it's kind of weird to end the season in the middle of the fight. Like, I feel like a more natural place for the season to end would have been having Doomsday kill Superman, show his cape, the iconic image of the cape hanging, and then the season ends there with season 4 starting with him dead, and then you can do that whole storyline. Whereas it feels like now they're going to potentially have him in some of the first episode. Maybe they'll do something interesting where, like, A lot of the supporting cast will be back for the first episode and then kind of leave after that. Maybe the first episode focused around his funeral with flashbacks to how he actually died in the fight, and then episode 2 is kind of carrying on from that. I am interested to see how they handle season 4 now that Lex and the Kents are pretty much the only main cast members in the show going forward. I'm certain that they're going to bring in a few other characters, a few new characters that'll be on that list. But for the moment, it's interesting. I am a little worried that the budget won't be there for what they want to do for the 4th season, and that it might come across a little weird, a little goofy, but we'll see anyway. But that's just kind of how I feel about Superman and Lois Season 3. I did want to get a video out on it because the season is only just ended. I would love to get a video out on The Flash Season 9, but it's been a little bit since it's ended now. It's like over a month, and The Flash movie's out like 3 weeks, and I would have loved to do a video on that as well. Maybe I will. But yeah, let me know how you felt about Superman and Lois Season 3. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you excited for Season 4? What do you want to see in Season 4? And please like, share, subscribe, and all of that, and I hope you have an amazing day.